Welcome back to our Books of the Year feature. And we picked 10 favorite books of the year, and we're just kind of recapping them in these videos. It struck me, I think, Mark, that of the 10, I think the only one that we got that deals purely with one group is this Sid Smith's In the Court of King Crimson, which this is his updated version. And I think it's quite interesting that it struck me that probably the first books I ever bought about groups, I can't remember what they were. I really even like the Beatles, Hunter Davis, and then Elvis by Jerry Hopkins, with kind of early biographies. They were quite slim volumes, weren't they, really? But it struck me that nowadays, if you get the story of a group, it kind of has to be a doorstop like this, doesn't it? Because
this is for completists, isn't it? I mean, the level of detail, pretty much every concert, every recording, incredible.
But that's kind of the point, isn't it? If you've got a group who have been going with certain kind of time off for 50 years, that's kind of what you've got to do. And so there's something to be said just for being utterly comprehensive. I'm not the world's biggest King Crimson fan, but I find the kind of level of detail in any book like this just startling. You know what I mean? It's like, I read Mark Lewisohn's Beatles book. Well, obviously that's the monster to beat all monsters. One volume we've got so far and two further to come. But this kind of isn't far off that, really, although it doesn't particularly concern itself with the personal lives of all the individuals involved. But it's just the level of detail that I've found absolutely fascinating. So if you go into every gig by pretty much any band, it's just intriguing, isn't it? Don't you think?
It is. It's astonishing. There's an account of a gig in America where the building catches fire. It's torched, actually, by the mafia for insurance reasons. And it's doused down by the fire extinguishers. And they talk about all the equipment being soaked, and they have to dry it all with hair dryers before they can start the gig. There's something, I don't know, the Mellotron's keyboard is jammed because the keys are swollen. I don't know why. I just find that really, really interesting.
I do. What's your favorite bit?
Oh, well, there's lots of it. I love the insights into Fripp's character, about how he plays in a dance orchestra in the Bournemouth Majestic Hotel as a teenager. And also Greg Lake buying him at one point a top hat and a cane in order to try and vibe up his stage image. But there's one lovely little bit, I thought, which, I always imagined that in the studio, it would all be kind of rather chin-stroking and rigid. There's a little tiny little section here where they're recording In the Wake of Poseidon. And he says, as they waited for the levels to be set, Giles, and Fripp slipped back into their old jerky personae, last heard at Bronsby Road, tipping into their dance band past with sprightly impromptu renditions of Ari Barroso's Brazil, with Michael Giles singing off mic, and on another occasion, after tinkering with Fripp's long-running party piece, Eric Coates' By a Sleepy Lagoon, better known as the theme to Desert Island Discs. Amid the laughter prior to the take, Fripp could be heard saying, "Okay, let's play jazz, boys." And as Peter Giles puts on one of his goons-inspired voices, his brother, tongue firmly in cheek, says, "I think King Crimson's a bit like the Moody Blues, especially that Pictures of a City." And Fripp replies, "We could do a mock jazz number by the Crimson Stompers." And off they fly into a country and western pastiche. And I'd never really imagined that kind of atmosphere in the studio. I thought that was really revealing.
That's one of the great kind of benefits of this book is that it's the insight into the strange lives of musicians, and in the mazy kind of unpredictable paths that reach them to wherever point you became familiar with them.
Yeah.
And I just want to read this.
Oh, go on.
Because this is kind of the backstory of Ian Wallace. Ian Wallace, who was kind of early drummer of King Crimson, subsequently went on to play with all kinds of people, including Bob Dylan. I think I'm right in saying. But this is a lovely account of his early life and adventures in music, if you'll indulge me. Ian Wallace was born in 1946 in the northern town of Bury. The son of working-class parents, his first real entry into music was when his mother bought him an acoustic guitar and he set about picking tunes out from the radio. However, it was not until he saw Acker Bilk and his Paramount Jazz Band at Bury's Royal Cinema that his true musical interests were revealed. As he stood queuing for an ice cream near the front of the stage, Wallace looked up and saw the stage lights reflecting off the coloured shell of the drums. It was an almost religious experience. The heavens opened up with a choir of angels and something said, "That's what you're supposed to do." The next day, he gathered up everything he had to trade for a basic drum kit and began to practice by playing along to his favorite trad jazz records. Can you imagine this? Early 60s. It wasn't long before rock and roll diverted him, and in 1962, he joined his first group, the Jaguars, in which he also sang for the drum stool. Occupying the support slot for visiting groups in concert at the Bury Palais was a good way of meeting other musicians. One group was the Warriors from nearby Accrington. Having just been signed to Decca by Dick Rowe, the Warriors were about to turn professional, but this was not an ambition shared by their drummer. Imagine this. The drummer says, "No, thanks, I've got a job. I'm not going to go off, to the bright lights." Wallace recalls how, for him, opportunity literally knocked at his door. They used to play a lot of clubs in the Manchester area. This is him recalling. They used to drive from Accrington in a Bedford van with buffalo horns on the front.
Fantastic.
Now, to get there, they had to drive through Bury along the Manchester Road, where I lived at number 107. The doorbell rings, and it's Johnny Anderson, as he was known then, asking if I wanted to audition. And I said yes. So that's obviously John Anderson out of Yes.
Out of Yes.
I was the lead singer of the group of the Warriors. Yeah. And eventually, the account here talks about how he had to be persuaded to join them by a deputation of the Warriors' parents coming round and sitting in the front room and talking to his parents about how this might be a really good opportunity for him to go off and do it. Anyway, he talks about.
I insist that my lad gets at least £1 17 shillings a week.
And anyway,
lunch and vouchers.
He just going ahead. When the Warriors split, Wallace returned to Bury and for a time joined a group called Big Sound. Eventually, the band ended up in London with £10 between them. Wallace picked up work backing singers such as Lou Christie and Sandy Shaw and played drums on the last tour by the Bonzo Dog Band, going on to work with Viv Stanshall in his Bonzo offshoot Big Grunt. I did a single with Viv on which Keith Moon played percussion, and on the B-side we swapped. I think John Entwistle played trombone on it as well. It's a version of the Elvis song Suspicion. Wallace was well up for the anarchic humor of the period and remembers working on a TV special with comedian Marty Feldman, which necessitated playing the drums dressed as a duck.
Fantastic.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, Wallace immediately accepted the offer of playing King Crimson. And Fripp took me out to Doc Hunt's in Archer Street in London. We bought a double bass kit, which Neil Innes painted for me. A lovely looking kit with English pastoral scenes on it. I never played a double bass drum kit before, but I think Fripp needed me to emulate where Michael Giles had been playing. I quickly changed back to one bass drum. Anyway, finally, Wallace recalls the search for a suitable bassist as long and tedious. It was me, Fripp, and Mel auditioning bass players and singers, and it came very close to not existing. We auditioned so many people, dozens and dozens, and we despaired of finding the right combination. On one occasion, a young man auditioned and fainted through nerves, an event still preserved on tape. I'd love to hear that one again, says Wallace. We used to sit around listening to the tape of him fainting and laugh uproariously, which was very cruel, but it was so funny. They recorded the audition brilliant. Where the man fainted.
That's fantastic.
There are a million stories in
it's a great book. I've lost the fantastic book, and just again, so much color and so much detail. Really worth reading. It's fantastic. Deep end stuff.